Faites l'appel, s'il vous plaît, monsieur le greffier.
Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Hélier. Madame le connétable de Saint-Laurent.
Présente.
Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Brélade.
Présent.
Monsieur le connétable de la Trinité.
Présent.
Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Pierre. Madame le connétable de Saint-Martin.
Présente.
Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Jean.
Présent.
Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Clément.
Présent.
Monsieur le connétable de Gruville.
Présent.
Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Ouen.
Présent.
Monsieur le connétable de Sainte-Marie. Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Sauveur.
Présent.
Monsieur le député Southern. Madame le député Labby.
Présente.
Monsieur le député Tadier. Monsieur le député Luce.
Présent.
Madame le député Dublé. Monsieur le député Morel.
Présent.
Madame le député Lehegara. Monsieur le député Ayer.
Présent.
Monsieur le député Ward.
Présent.
Madame le député Alves. Madame le député Gardner. Monsieur le député Gorst.
Présent.
Monsieur le député Farnham.
Présent.
Madame le député Moore.
Présente.
Monsieur le député Mezek.
Présent.
Monsieur le député Joseph. Monsieur le député Balash. Monsieur le député Coles.
Présent.
Madame le député Poré. Monsieur le député Wall.
Présent.
Madame le député Miles.
Présente.
Madame le député Scott.
Présente.
Monsieur le député Reneth.
Présent.
Madame le député Curtis. Madame le député Felton.
Présente.
Madame le député Binet. Madame le député Jeune. Madame le député Miller.
Présente.
Madame le député Howe. Monsieur le député Binet. Monsieur le député Ferry.
Présent.
Madame le député Kovac.
Présente.
Monsieur le député Curtis.
Présent.
Madame le député Ward.
Présente.
Madame le député Wilson. Madame le député Stevenson.
Présente.
Monsieur le député Andrews.
Présent.
Monsieur le greffier.
Notre aide soit au nom de Dieu qui a fait les cieux et la terre. Amen. Seigneur Dieu, Père éternel et tout-puissant, qui a établi le gouvernement et les puissances de la terre pour le règlement et pour la conduite du peuple, et qui nous a commandé d'avoir toujours pour but la gloire de ton saint nom. Nous te prions qu'il te plaise de donner à cette assemblée le don de conseil et de prudence, d'unir le cœur et les affections de tous ceux qui la composent, et de les conduire tellement toi-même par ton Saint-Esprit, que toutes leurs délibérations étant accompagnées de ta bénédiction, réussissent au bien et soulagement du peuple, qui t'a plu de commettre le soin. Car nous t'en prions au nom et par les mérites de ton Fils bien-aimé Jésus-Christ, notre Seigneur, qui nous a enseigné de t'invoquer en disant: Notre Père, qui es aux cieux, ton nom soit sanctifié, ton règne vienne, ta volonté soit faite dans la terre comme au ciel. Donne-nous aujourd'hui notre pain quotidien, et nous pardonne nos offenses, comme nous pardonnons à ceux qui nous ont offensés. Et ne nous induis point en tentation, mais délivre-nous du mal, car à toi est le règne, la puissance et la gloire, au siècle des siècles. Amen. Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Hélier. Monsieur le connétable de Saint-Pierre.
Défaut.
Monsieur le connétable de Sainte-Marie.
Présent.
Monsieur le député Southern.
Présent.
Monsieur le député Sadier.
Présent.
Madame le député Dublé.
Présente.
Madame le député Alves.
Présente.
Madame le député Gardner.
Présente.
Monsieur le député Joseph. Vous jurez que M. le député Joseph est tellement indisposé qu'il ne peut pas assister aux États sans exposer sa santé. Monsieur le député Balash. Vous jurez que M. le député Balash est tellement indisposé qu'il ne peut pas assister aux États sans exposer sa santé.
Les États sont constitués. Very well. The next item of public business is increased Christmas bonus lodged by Deputy Rob Ward. The main respondent is the Minister for Social Security. Before I ask the greffier to read the proposition, Deputy Ward, I understand that you are only wishing to propose Part A of the proposition and not Part B. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. If I can take leave of the Assembly to do that, that's what I intend to do. With consultations and discussions, I think Part B may both tie the hands of the Minister too much and may not be the most appropriate way to move forward, and other things can be done. So if we can take it as just Part A, I would
well, as a matter
be very
of
pleased to do that.
as a matter of
Thank you,
procedure, that's a matter for you because it's not yet been moved. You can move those parts of it that you wish. They are severable. Therefore, I'll ask the greffier to read the proposition containing Part A only.
The States are asked to decide whether they are of opinion to request the Minister for Social Security, A, increase the amount of the Christmas bonus in 2023 from £84.87 to £114.19 to reflect inflation.
Deputy.
Thank you, sir. Can I start off by just apologising for not being there in person? Still testing positive with symptoms, so it's the most sensible thing to do. But in this format, we'll do what we can do. So first of all, I must address just a couple of points within the comments published by the Minister on the 8th of September, just to address them. So to quote the comments paper, it says, it is disappointing that given his position as chair of Health and Social Security Scrutiny Panel, Deputy Ward did not engage with the ministers or officers before lodging this proposition. So with respect, I cannot disagree more regards this being disappointing. It is not the role of a scrutiny chair to use the position of the panel or develop individual backbench propositions and use that panel as such. I made it clear when elected to the role the importance of keeping the process of scrutiny separate from my role as an individual member and indeed as a very proud member of a party in this Assembly. That is what I've done and that's what I'll continue to do. And I am surprised that officers do not understand this and have not advised the Minister accordingly. But on a much more positive note, let's talk about engagement. So there has been engagement regards to this. Reform runs a programme of engagement with ministers and a wide range of organisations via our Monday meetings, which is a really effective use of 10 members' time. And I'm really pleased to say thank you, genuinely thank you to the Minister who has attended one of our weekly meetings where I understand we were informed that she was minded to accept the first part, Part A, and reject Part B. I was away for that meeting because that was my week's holiday, but acted upon it as soon as I returned on the 5th of September to email the Minister to ask about a compromise on Part B. I did receive an out-of-office reply. I've acted on that and following no response to withdraw Part B as a compromise, which I hope will be useful. I do understand that the Minister was away until 11th of September, and that is not a criticism of taking a much-needed break. I want to be very clear on that, and I would encourage members that you do have to look after yourself. So I would also address the figures in the comments paper because they must be addressed. I estimated 5,137 people received the bonus from a total cost given in the proposition in 2016 that reinstated the cost. I think that was from Deputy Southern. The comments made, and I divided by the amount of money that was being used. The comments seem to state a lower number, thus leading to an overall cost. To quote the comments, the additional cost of the proposed increase to £114.19 is £142,000. I had suggested an extra cost of £151,000, so the figure appears to be less, and I'm quite happy to accept the lower figure, which is indeed easier to accommodate. But so let's talk about the need. It's clear from the actions taken by the government, including in the comments paper, and from our personal interactions with our constituents, that pensioners are struggling with the cost of living. The Christmas cost bonus recognises this by its very existence. However, its value has declined since 2016. This proposition provides the opportunity to restore this value and have a direct impact on an important section of our community who have spent their lives contributing for us. And Christmas does, unfortunately, bring its own financial pressures. The argument about commercialisation of a Christian festival is for another time, perhaps something the Dean and I may well agree upon, but as I say, it's for another time. But so I believe we need to support pensioners where we can. This is a simple change, already targeted and requiring a simple change to the number in the legislation, in the same way that the Minister would do for any quantitative change in benefit. So that's all I'm going to say to introduce this. So I hope that members can support this proposition and pensioners in their community. And so, sir, I make the proposition.
Thank you, Deputy. Is the proposition seconded?
Yes, sir.
Does any member wish to speak on the proposition? Deputy Scott.
Thank you, sir. While I am supportive of the proposition, I do wonder whether it ever needed to be brought, because it's actually asking for an increase of the Christmas bonus in line with inflation. And I do understand that's what the Minister of Social Security does. So I can't help feeling that, you know, it's like somebody just putting their thumb in a pudding and say, hey, I've got the plum, you know. Well, and whilst I respect my colleague, Deputy Ward, in many ways, I also disagree with his understanding of what you can do as a chair of a scrutiny panel and what you can do as a private member. As people might understand, I have to often think about what I can do in my role as chair of the Economic Scrutiny Panel and what I can do as a private member. And in both cases, yes, as a chair of a scrutiny panel, I can ask questions of the minister. I can actually say, are you going to do this? What are you going to do when you do this? I can get my colleagues on the scrutiny panel to ask those questions. That is our role. And as a private member, and indeed I have brought propositions as a private member, I also can go to different ministers and to say, I'm actually thinking of bringing a proposition. Will I have your support? And it's important because otherwise, I'm wasting State Assembly's time. Because if I'm bringing a proposition and I already do not have government support, then it's actually going to be really, really, really difficult, isn't it, to persuade everyone else to support it. But this is a very easy proposition to bring. It's very easy to say, I brought this proposition and the States Assembly supported. And of course we will, but I do very much support the Minister of Social Security for her role and do again question whether it ever was necessary for this proposition to be brought to have the result that it has. Thank you.
Minister of Social Security.
Thank you, sir. I don't really want to go into too much detail about Deputy Ward's comments. I think the comment in the comments about our disappointment at the proposition simply being lodged was that I would have preferred to have had a discussion before it was lodged. In one of our recent sittings, Deputy Ward commented on the need for collaboration and how he wanted government to collaborate with reform and with backbenchers. I am more than happy to do that. And if Deputy Ward had spoken to me in the first instance, we could have developed a proposition that would have been come in as an accepted proposition, and everybody would have been happy, and we could have we could have brought this forward on a joint basis. And that was why we used the word disappointing that early conversation did not happen. I am more than happy to discuss with any backbencher, and I know my officers have been discussing with other members elements of their own propositions to make sure that they come forward in a way that we can support them where possible. So that's my need for that wording, but that's, I think, our reasoning for that wording. I am very happy to collaborate. I'd also like to assure members that the needs of pensioners have been and remain at the forefront of my mind since I was elected and since I became a minister. This time last year, the new Assembly supported the Council of Ministers in its proposals for a mini-budget to address the cost of living pressures being felt at that time. As part of that new elected council, I worked with fellow ministers over last summer to draw up and agree a comprehensive and timely plan to support islanders at a time of rapidly increasing prices. As part of that plan, the support for heating costs over the winter was increased last year, and I'm grateful for the support of States members yesterday in approving an extension of that scheme for this coming winter. The changes guarantee low-income pensioners a fixed £70 per month for the 6 months from October 23 to March 24. It also applies to other selected low-income groups. At the beginning of this month, I significantly improved the support available through the Pension Plus scheme. This scheme is available to low-income pensioners, and it provides help with dental, optical and chiropody bills as they arise. Members will also be aware that these pensioners are included in the Health Access Scheme, which provides significant support towards general practice services. For example, a GP surgery visit costs £12 for those who benefit from the Health Access Scheme. I'm continuing to look at eligibility for Pension Plus in the coming months, in particular to review the way in which the income conditions are applied. I'm aware, some representations from Deputy Scott in particular, about issues facing pensioners who don't qualify for income support, who have incomes, who pay tax, but who, because they are renters, have limited disposable income. And I recognise that as an issue, and we will continue to look at it with a view to making further amendments next year. The value of the extra support to low-income pensioners under these two changes will be well over £1 million, with the ongoing changes to Pension Plus providing an additional £500,000 a year towards health costs going forward. The rationale for supporting low-income pensioners through these two schemes is strong. The need for extra heating or healthcare can be hard to predict in advance, and it can be challenging when households are faced with an unexpected bill while managing on a fixed budget. Ensuring that pensioners can afford adequate heating and timely healthcare is important to support their overall well-being and independence. Deputy Ward's proposition proposed an increase in the Christmas bonus. While there are strong cultural ties in Jersey to the Christmas holiday, expenditure on Christmas presents and celebrations does not fall into the same category as supporting heating and health costs. An important role of government is to ensure that vulnerable people get the help they need to maintain their health and well-being and their general standard of living. The need for help with heating and health costs is very clear, and many governments provide support in these areas. Statutory financial help to help support Christmas festivities is much less common, and as a comparator, which I don't support by any means, I would just highlight to members that in the UK, the Christmas bonus has been unchanged for very many years at £10. As Minister for Social Security, I do not oppose Part A of the proposition, which seeks to increase the annual payment from £85 to £114. The CLS benefit budget for next year can accommodate the extra cost, estimated at £142,000, as Deputy Ward has said. However, members should be aware that this additional expenditure may restrict my ability to bring forward additional schemes next year in response to emerging financial pressures. We are not yet by any means out of the woods in terms of the cost of living crisis, and we don't know what the coming months are going to bring. But for example, over the last 3 years, my predecessor introduced and funded short-term schemes to support unemployed migrant workers who were unable to leave Jersey due to COVID, to provide a spend local card to all islanders to support local businesses during COVID, and to introduce the cost of living temporary scheme, which provided additional monthly payments at very short notice to low-income families following the recent hike in inflation. Taking money out of budgets on a piecemeal basis, on an unplanned basis, does affect our ability to fund other things in future. I simply want to raise that with members now if we do have to make further steps later in the year. But I will support the proposition, and I also encourage members to do so.
Deputy Mezek.
Thank you, sir. I thought that Deputy Scott's talk about time wasting was pretty ironic, to be honest, because her entire speech seemed to be based on two misunderstandings that can't be left unanswered. So the first of those, it seems to be based on a misunderstanding about what the Christmas bonus actually is, and she described the proposition as unnecessary. No, it is necessary because the Christmas bonus is not automatically uprated. It's a static amount that doesn't move and in fact hasn't moved for 7 years. It can't be raised unless we decide to raise it proactively. So I think her understanding there was wrong. But more importantly, her talk about not bringing business to this assembly unless you've secured support from the government in advance is frankly a dangerous position and anti-democratic. Every single member of this assembly, whether you're in the executive or not, whether you're in a party or not, has a democratic right to bring business to this assembly on behalf of your constituents, including when you know it's a lost cause, but you're doing so to give a voice to the voiceless otherwise, or a voice to those who gave you your mandate. So I say to members, don't ever be deterred from bringing business to this assembly that's in line with your democratic mandate because you haven't secured or sewn up the support before you reach the chamber. It's a democratic debating chamber and we can make our decisions here. And sometimes that might mean defeating another bloc in the assembly, and that does happen from time to time, and strange coalitions are often formed on the floor of this chamber to do that, so members should never feel bad about doing that. So I'm very pleased to support this proposition from Deputy Ward, and I remember before discussing with him having a conversation with a constituent who came to me at my constituency surgery with Deputy Coles and Deputy Borre, to say that it is something that he had noticed was quite strongly on the agenda in 2016 but hadn't been raised since then, and was something that could do with being uprated because of the cost of living crisis and the extra support it would provide to a part of our society at Christmas time. So I thank that constituent for raising that with us, and I'm pleased to see it on the business of this assembly today. So in 2016, before 2016, I should say, sir, the Ian Gorse-led austerity government brought forward a package of cuts to support that was provided to islanders, £10 million that was made up of, and it included things like scrapping the single-parent component of income support, thankfully something the states U-turned a couple of years later on, but it also included a package of cuts to support that was provided to pensioners, much of which was defeated as well. And that included abolishing the Christmas bonus in its entirety. But thankfully, because of the political pressure that was put on the government and this assembly, much of which was led by Deputy Southern, it has to be said, an iteration of the pensioners' Christmas bonus was installed as a result of that. And you can tell it wasn't a priority for those in power at the time, given no mechanism was put in place so it could be uprated over time. So I hope that with Deputy Ward having brought the proposition to secure that uprating today, which I hope sounds like it's not going to be controversial, that it then gives some space for the Social Security Minister or other members, if they choose to find their own mechanism to bring to this assembly, to look at some way of making sure that its value doesn't decline in future years. But we wouldn't be having that discussion if Deputy Ward hadn't put it on the agenda, so thank you to him for doing so.
Does any other member wish to speak on the proposition? No other member wishes to speak. Deputy Tadier.
So it's very quickly, it's a wider issue, and it's really important that I think that Deputy Ward has brought this, because the states and government need to be mindful of other benefits thresholds, for example, that are also atrophying. So one thing that I hear, I've heard quite a lot very recently, whether at my surgeries or just in the community from people, and it's often people who are retired or pensioners, is about the long-term care threshold and the amount that's allocated to the value of the home. That's not changed at all since the beginning of the scheme. I think it's still set at some £415,000, but we know that inflation has been going on, and that the price of your average family home goes up. So it's okay to introduce these things initially and to wave a flag saying that whichever government of the day is doing something for the people and we're really progressive and we're trying to help you, but actually if you don't keep up with inflation, it's a little bit like saying to your children, we've bought you a new pair of shoes, But of course, when they go from their size 5 to their size 7 shoes or whatever it is, saying, no, I'm afraid you have to keep on wearing those, something's not going to fit. And that's why we need to do it. And I would say that actually what Deputy Ward's done here is a form of collaboration. There are some things which are fairly straightforward and so simple that it's just easier to lodge a proposition. And it's not a case of just collaborating, therefore, with the department, but collaborating with the whole Assembly. This has been lodged for a period of time. The Minister has issued comments, and the comments have been read, and then Deputy Ward has then taken those comments into account and said, OK, look, I'll just proceed with Part A, not Part B. And that's a very efficient way of doing business in our Assembly as a backbencher. And of course, there is no tension here between his role in scrutiny and that of a backbencher. And I think many members, perhaps new members, are finding that they've got a lot of power as a backbencher. You can influence policy, and that's something which I know Deputy Ward and other new members have been doing very effectively since their time in the Assembly.
Does any other member wish to speak on the proposition? Ferry.
Thank you, sir. I would just like to redraw members' attention to some of the comments made by the Social Security Minister. One of the principles behind the Social Security remit is to ensure that people can meet their basic needs and that taxpayers' money is well spent to support those needs in a timely fashion. The recent proposals of the Minister to strengthen the cold weather payments and the Pension Plus scheme address that brief head-on. The extra funding available through these schemes will make a real difference to pensioners facing an unexpected dental bill or heating cost. It is difficult to make the same argument to the taxpayer providing additional help with the cost of Christmas. This is an area where voluntary sector is particularly effective. And as Minister with responsibility for charities, I'm proud of the success of local groups in providing extra treats and good food and companionship at Christmas time. I will be supporting Part A of this proposition and I'm grateful to Deputy Ward for letting Part B go.
Does any other member wish to speak? No other member wishes to speak? I close the debate and call upon Deputy Ward to respond.
Thank you, sir, and thank you for all those members who have contributed. I'll do them in order as I've jotted down here. Deputy Scott, I've got to say there isn't a built-in increase. That's why I'm bringing this, so there is a relevant point to it. I don't agree with your interpretation of scrutiny in these terms. I think it has to be very separate from our role of backbenchers and very separate from our role being a party, whether that's a declared party or not. And so therefore I think it's really important that backbenchers, I act as a backbencher today in bringing this proposition. And I'd like to just jump to actually what Deputy Mezek said, because he's correct. And Deputy Tadian, I would say to all members, it is absolutely vital that we bring propositions as backbenchers. Otherwise, our Assembly does not have primacy. As the Assembly has primacy over government, over individuals, over parties. This is the unique feature of our Assembly. And indeed, sir, that's why I stood, because I have the opportunity to bring these propositions to this Assembly. And if people find that in some way slightly irritating, I'm afraid they need to find a way of dealing with that, because they will continue to come. For the Minister, regards in preferring the discussion, I think it's partly timing. I will say though, sir, I don't believe that every proposition that comes to this Assembly by a backbencher needs to be rubber stamped by the Minister. The Minister has a lot more ability to bring propositions and a lot more support in doing so from officers. And I think we need to be very careful in undermining backbenchers' propositions just simply because that the Minister doesn't feel that we talked enough about it. I'll mention these things about the mini budget. They're all great. That's great. All of those extra helps are absolutely needed. This is not about that. This is about a specific payment for Christmas bonus. And I'll jump to Deputy Ferry. You seem to say that there are voluntary groups who provide nice things. Yeah, that's lovely. But we don't want those people in our society who have given us so much to have to be so reliant upon charity just to have a decent time in our yearly celebration of what we are as a community and Christmas. And I think that this payment is actually a very important one. And we all know about these voluntary things. I mean, I do the Christmas lunches each year in St Helier, and to be honest, I get as much pleasure out of doing that as those people who come along, because it's part of our community involvement, and it's just enjoyable. It's fun. So I know these things are important, but we can't leave everything to the voluntary sector and charity. We need to have a safety net for our people, and that's exactly what this is. And I don't want to conflate the basics of life. And if you think about it, really having to provide those basics through these things is an issue for us anyway. Cold weather payments, etc., etc. Everyone should have a decent standard of living. This is about just giving that little bit extra and uprating something that already exists for this Christmas, and saying to the pensioners on our island, look, this assembly does value you, and we are going to do something today which is positive, and I think we need some positives from this sitting that can go out to our community and say, thank you for what you're doing, we're here to support you where we can. I think I've covered everything that everybody's said, and with that, sir, I would just make the proposition and call for the appel.
That is called for. I invite members to return to their seats. Ask the greffier to open the voting. The vote is on P59. Members have had the opportunity of casting their vote.
So just check you got my vote. It's pretty obvious, but there you go. Thank you.
Yes, I'm going to guess which way you're going to vote on this one. Indeed, we have. Thank you. Ask greffier to close the voting. The proposition has been adopted. 46 votes pour, no votes contre, no abstentions.
So may I just say thank you to members for supporting. Thank you very much.
Very well. The next item is the Income Support Medical Appeal Tribunal reappointment of member lodged by the Minister for Social Security. The main respondent is the Chair of the Health and Social Security Scrutiny Panel. I ask the greffier to read the proposition.
The states are asked to decide whether they are of opinion, in accordance with Article 9 of the Income Support Jersey Law 2007, and further to a process overseen by the Jersey Appointments Commission, to reappoint Dr Benjamin Griffiths as a member of the Income Support Medical Appeal Tribunal for a period of 4 years.
Minister.
Thank you, sir. This item and the following one refer to the reappointment of Dr Benjamin Griffiths as a medical member of 2 of the Social Security Appeal Tribunals. Dr Griffiths has been serving on both of these tribunals for the last 5 years. The Jersey Appointments Commission recommends a maximum of 9 years for these types of appointments and has endorsed the application of Dr Griffiths to serve a further 4-year term on both tribunals. This item relates to the Income Support Medical Appeal Tribunal, which acts as an independent appeal body, mainly in respect of claims that involve a medical assessment for income support purposes. Dr Griffiths has served on this tribunal for the last 5 years, and I ask members to approve his reappointment for a further 4 years, and I make the proposition. Thank you, sir.
Proposition seconded.
Sir.
Does any member wish to speak on the proposition? Conetaba St Mary.
Thank you, sir. I shall be supporting the proposition, but I thought it appropriate to raise the fact that some 5 or 6 years ago, the Law Commission made certain recommendations which, had they been implemented, would have made this proposition today redundant. The main purpose of that Law Commission report, which is topic report, Improving Administrative Redress in Jersey, was submitted in October 2017, and one of its main recommendations was and I quote there, recommendation 3, create a new tribunal, the Jersey Administrative Appeals Tribunal, with a broad jurisdiction to hear appeals against administrative decisions. It then laid out the benefits of such a broad appeal, and following on from that, the further recommendation was to transfer to this new JAAT the powers vested in certain independent tribunals, including that the subject of this proposition. That has not been progressed. In that connection, maybe I could just quote the report submitted by the Chief Minister of the day, saying, the Chief Minister, then Senator Ian Gorse, and Chair of the Legislation Advisory Panel, Senator Philip Bellish, welcome the publication of the topic report by the Jersey Law Commission. It is an important and substantial piece of work which aims to contribute to the wider project of building trust and confidence in the process for complaining about public administration. The Minister's report then goes on to identify certain aspects which would need to be considered, including a timetable where the dates of 2018 and 2019 were mentioned. Nothing much has happened, and the purpose I bring it to the attention of the Assembly is to say that I am hopeful that the Council of Ministers might be persuaded to bring in legislation in accordance with those recommendations, which I think are very much needed, not only in respect of the taking on the appeals in this case, but also to hear appeals from ministers on other matters. And as I say, I'm hopeful that the Council of Ministers might be persuaded to bring in legislation in this term. If I'm not successful, then noting some of the observations made this morning, I shall have no hesitation in bringing a proposition to that effect myself. Thank you, sir.
Right. Does any other member wish to speak on the proposition? No other member wishes to speak. Then I close the debate and call upon the Minister to respond.
Thank you, sir. I am familiar with that report because I remember it coming out and I remember reading it. And I think in my capacity as Viscount, I may have commented on it. It was something that I had an interest in because I previously served as Deputy Chair of the Income Support Medical Appeal Tribunal. I can't comment on why it hasn't been brought forward further. I think there are a number of other initiatives that may also overlap with it. But I note his comments. One of my concerns about that tribunal, just to throw in a comment, was that some of them are very technical. And one of the reasons why I personally support the continuing appointment of Dr. Griffiths is that some of them don't meet very, very often. And no sooner, if you only meet a handful of times a year, no sooner have you developed some kind of skill and expertise and knowledge of the law. If your term then ends, we've lost that experience. So I do think it's worthwhile continuing people like Dr. Griffiths who have developed some knowledge. But I take your point, and I'm sure the Chief Minister and the Council of Ministers will consider that further. So, sir, I make the proposition.
Very well. Those in favour of adopting the proposition kindly show. Those against? Proposition is adopted. The next item of public business is the Social Security Medical Appeal Tribunal reappointment of member lodged by the same minister with the same respondent. Minister, I'll ask the greffier to read the proposition.
The States are asked to decide whether they are of opinion, in accordance with Article 33A of the Social Security Jersey Law 1974, and further to a process overseen by the Jersey Appointments Commission, to reappoint Dr. Benjamin Griffiths as a member of the Social Security Medical Appeal Tribunal for a period of 4 years.
Minister.
Thank you, sir. I will try not to repeat myself, but largely as explained a few minutes ago, this proposition also relates to the appointment of Dr. Griffiths to a different Social Security Tribunal for a further 4 years. This particular proposition relates to the Social Security Medical Appeal Tribunal, and this tribunal hears appeals in respect of medical assessments undertaken under the Social Security law. I ask members to approve Dr. Griffiths' reappointment for a further 4 years, and I make the proposition. Thank you.
Proposition seconded. Does any member wish to speak? Conatable St Mary.
Thank you, sir. Again, I will not repeat the comments just made, but this is a further tribunal which would, whose powers would be transferred to the JAT if formed. I do take note of the Minister's observations, and certainly I'm sure on behalf of the Assembly I wish to thank Dr. Griffiths for his previous term in office and also his willingness to continue in service again. And again, I shall support this proposition as before.
Very much, Conatable. Deputy Sutherland.
Yes, very much in support of the previous speaker, because there are two things that seems to me that need to be reorganised, need to be better run than they are currently. One is that the time taken to see an appeal through can be very a long length of time, difficult as well. And secondly, The other thing, the grounds that I have using the appeal mechanism is that it's not clear what you need to do to prove that a decision has been made wrongly. And that's because there are no criteria. There are criteria in the administrative appeals process. In the complaints board, you've got 5 clear things which you can prove. Any one of them would give a successful appeal. But the thing you need to prove is written down clearly for you, and it's possible to see it through and understand the process, whereas the Social Security, whether medical or non-medical appeals board, is very unclear on the matter. So there is reform that needs doing, because one of the things that is important is there must be an appeals process in place which must be seen to be effective. An appeal which is delayed is an appeal which is hardly heard at all. So I would support very much a review of the effectiveness of how the system is working, because I believe that it's not working as well as it might.
Does any other member wish to speak? No other member wishes to speak? Then I close the debate and call upon the Minister to respond.
Thank you, sir. Just to address as far as I can Deputy Southern's comments, I don't remember, it's some years since I stopped being involved among the tribunals, and I don't remember the grounds of appeal. My recollection is that an appellant can go through a process where there's a second determination within the department that then goes to appeal. Any tribunal process can take a long time. That's always regrettable. Any court process, and I'm not entirely sure that a single administrative tribunal will necessarily address those issues about speed. But process is always something we can look at. As I say, I don't recollect the grounds on which appeals can be made, but I will certainly ask my office to look into those and see whether those can be clarified. But I'd imagine it's like any civil tribunal, a person has to meet the normal burden of proof, and standards, which is balance of probability. But I will undertake to the Deputy to look into those criteria and see how they can be addressed, and we may have to have a discussion to discuss with him in more detail his concerns. That would be helpful, and I'm willing to do that, sir.
Well, those in favour of adopting the proposition kindly show. Those against? Very well, the proposition is adopted. The next item of public business is new stamp duty rates lodged by Deputy Andrews. The main responder is the Minister for Treasury and Resources, and I ask the greffier to read the proposition.
The States are asked to decide whether they are of opinion to request the Minister for Treasury and Resources to bring forward the necessary legislative changes for consideration by the Assembly to increase the stamp duty payable on all transactions in excess of £2 million in accordance with the table below, with the changes to take effect from January 2024.
Members were showing a little bit of confusion. There was an earlier iteration of the proposition which was withdrawn. This particular iteration is still current. Deputy.
Thank you very much, sir. Firstly, I would just like to thank the Minister and the Assistant Treasury Minister for working with me on this proposition. In the original proposition that I lodged, the stamp duty increases were more substantial than the ones that are seen in this proposition, where it is only a 0.5 percentage point increase. Now, the point of the proposition, by increasing stamp duty rates above property transactions over 2 million, is to actually support first-time buyers with additional forthcoming plans that will be part of the forthcoming government plan, and where we will also see changes to the financial law as well by increasing the first-time buyer stamp duty threshold. As it was an election commitment of mine to support first-time buyers, previously I have brought forward proposals in the government plan that was debated in December, and during that debate I was unsuccessful, but hopefully this time round the States Assembly will be supporting me and also supporting first-time buyers as well. I think everybody understands it's very difficult at the moment. We just need to be looking at the high interest rates that people are paying, but at the same time we have a 4-year term where we need to be delivering, and we need to actually show what outcome can be shown upon by delivering policies that can support first-time buyers to enter home ownership. And I think this is a good opportunity for us in January 2024 to support first-time buyers and to give them a bit of a head start. So I'd like to move the proposition. Thank you, sir.
Well, is the proposition seconded?
Sir.
Does anyone wish to speak on the proposition?
Sorry, sir, can I get a point of clarification?
Certainly.
Well,
is it a point of clarification from the person who's just spoken?
Yes, sir.
Yes. Well, I'm sorry. Deputy, do you give way for a point of clarification? Well, then I'm afraid no point of clarification can be taken at the present time. But of course, you will still have a right to speak and the Deputy will respond. So if you speak and ask a question, presumably the Deputy will answer it in his summing up at the end. But there we are. Is there any do you wish to speak, Deputy Gotham?
Yes, sir.
Right.
The point of clarification is quite confusing then, because P63, which we are debating today, the Deputy in his opening statement refers to first-time buyers and helping first-time buyers in stamp duty, but this proposition refers to properties that exceed £2 million as the first entrance of it. And so I'm confused as to a first-time buyer buying a £2 million property needing support from this Assembly. So quite simply, I cannot support this.
Deputy Scott.
Thank you, sir. I've had confusion about how this proposition supports first-time buyers, but I know the government has given it its support, and generally I would support the government, although I am finding it more difficult to do so, unfortunately, these days. And in this particular case, I'm sorry. I don't understand why we're bringing tax increases outside the budget. I would like things to be more holistic rather than here's a way of taking more money out of taxpayers. So I invite Deputy Andrews to perhaps clarify this for me in his closing speech. Thank you.
Deputy IA.
Thank you, sir. This has the bearing of a rather precipitous action on the part of the proposer. It was only recently that the Deputy's proposition P39, new stamp duty rates, was withdrawn. Indeed, it is mentioned as such on today's order paper. To have brought such a hasty proposal to the Assembly to replace P39 in such short order seems to me to be reckless. How, one must ask, can all relevant stakeholders have been approached and informed of the changes? One must wonder whether any such engagement has taken place. The report itself consists of 2 lines, and there is no rationale incorporated therein for such a change. This is not the first time during this term of office that we've been presented with propositions from backbenchers which seem to have been written in haste on the back of the proverbial cigarette packet. Why would we be endorsing these proposed actions when they clearly have not been well researched? During the previous Assembly, I was the Vice Chair of the Corporate Services Scrutiny Panel, a position which the Deputy currently holds. We as a panel did a good deal of work on stamp duty rates. Firstly, we attempted to bring an amendment to the government plan, which was debated at the end of 2018. Unfortunately, due to some technical difficulties, we were unable to proceed with our proposal. Thereafter, we resolved to bring forward certain changes to stamp duty in the next government plan the year after. Even though we did detailed research and engagement with stakeholders, our proposed amendment was rejected by the then Council of Ministers, and failed to receive enough votes from members. This did not deter us from coming back the year after with similar plans for increasing the upper bands of stamp duty. Finally, our efforts were endorsed by members in December of 2020, after roughly 2 years of endeavour. Those changes were implemented at the beginning of 2021 and remain the same today. It is important that such changes are given time to embed and that they are not randomly altered on the hoof, but that seems to be what we are being asked to do today. We have to remember that the housing market is very fragile at the moment, and impetuous changes in this climate of rising interest rates are not the most prudent way to proceed. We must not risk a further decline in the number of house purchases because we endorse what can only be described as a knee-jerk reaction. I also have doubts about the financial implications that are mentioned in the proposition. They assume that £950,000 per annum in duty will be raised. I believe that the Deputy is extremely optimistic with his calculations, which are based on transactions during 2021 and 2022. I am sure that he realises that the market since then has changed dramatically. I ask members to be very cautious at this current time and not to support this proposition. It seems to me to be ill thought through, hasty and politically motivated. I would ask all members to vote against this proposal. Thank you, sir.
Constable Trinity.
Thank you, sir. I'm just raised to say that I can't support this proposition any more than I could support P29 when it was brought earlier this year. Jersey Limited trades and its international reputation is built on stable government and not being prone to knee-jerk tax changes. And I just see this as being, as some of the other members have already commented, a knee-jerk reaction and something that really should be brought forward once a year when we do our budget. Unless there's some particular crisis that needs to be addressed, I feel that that is the time for these type of tax changes to be dealt with holistically. So I'm afraid I cannot support this proposition today. Thank you, sir.
Deputy Howell.
Thank you, sir. Much in the same vein as Deputy Ayer and the Constable of Trinity, I would like to say that this government have already increased stamp duty. And since then, mortgage rates have increased dramatically. So much so that I think about 2 weeks ago, there were no transactions for houses in the Royal Court. And I think this might have been one of the first times this has happened. Estate agents are having to let staff go. The property market is in, I think, fairly serious trouble at the moment. And I think we do have to send a message of stability to Jersey Islanders and elsewhere. And I do not think we should be tinkering with the market in this way. And I urge you to vote against this proposition. Thank you, sir.
Deputy. Minister of Treasury and Resources.
So before I start my intervention, could I ask you for a ruling of procedure? Should members reject this proposition today, could you confirm whether, as Minister, I would be able to, or the Council of Ministers would be able to bring forward changes that replicate this in principle decision in the government plan when it's lodged next week?
I think the difficulty, and I'm sure you're considering, Minister, is that a vote means that there can't be a rescind or a change to that for at least 3 months. There is no harm, I think, in an application to change being lodged. So if it's lodged in the government plan, that would be lodgeable, but not debatable, because it can't be changed. And I'm not sure how that works within the time frame of the proposed debate on the government plan, if that assists.
It does assist very much. It assists me. It may not assist the mover of the proposition. In listening to members' contributions to date, I can understand that this is just one side, and I need to be careful here not to divulge at this point exactly what's in the government plan, but it will come as no surprise to members because I've made public commitments, as has the Housing Minister, to seek to make changes to first-time buyer stamp duty proposals in the government plan. When the Deputy initially lodged his proposals for these increased stamp duties, he came and spoke to Treasury. He worked with not the Assistant Minister that just spoken, but the other Assistant Minister, and worked very carefully, and we felt in a position to be able to support an in-principle decision. Having said that, if, as it sounds, members are not supportive of an in-principle decision but would rather make the decision in the round in the government plan to understand the full implications of potentially raising duty on these higher value properties and how that raised duty could be then used to amend first-time buyer rates so that we can carefully intervene in the market, and this is not the only announcement that ministers will be making around unblocking the housing market, because we're absolutely clear that the housing market, not only what we've seen officially from the statistics department, but also from what we're hearing from agents in the market and the fall in the market and the lack of transactions in the market, it is appropriate that actions are taken. And for my part, one of those appropriate actions is to amend the stamp duty rates for first-time buyers.
Deputy, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but if I could clarify what I said earlier, because I think it might be important for you. Having considered the proposition again, of course, it seeks increase the stamp duty payable on all transactions in excess of £2 million in accordance with the table below. So it seems to me that it would be open, even if the Assembly voted against the table below, as it were, to bring in another table with slightly different figures. It would be it would be technically possible as a matter of procedure. In other words, I'm sorry to sort of trivialise the matter, but if it was £7.51 instead of £7.50, that would not be in accordance with the table below and therefore would not have been the subject matter of a decision of the Assembly. I think technically that has to be the correct ruling, and I'm sorry if that has knocked you a little bit off course. Yes,
I thank you, sir, for that further thought, which obviously from a parliamentary perspective is absolutely correct. The problem is that the Deputy has worked with the department, and the thresholds in this table are the thresholds that are currently within how we deal with stamp duty, and we were very mindful that what was the original proposal was creating separate thresholds and a broader change to the stamp duty regime. So you're quite right, sir. Theoretically, we could come back with a slightly amended number or threshold, but we wouldn't actually want to do that because these are the thresholds that we already use, and that would create other difficulties. So I thank you for that clarification, but I think my main point then that I was just getting on to unfortunately stands. I would not want a negative vote today to mean that we couldn't, in practice, maintain existing bans and the approach to how we deal with stamp duty to mean that we couldn't make those really important and positive changes to first-time buyer proposals that we wish to make together with those other announcements. And therefore, so it gives me no pleasure because the Deputy has worked proactively and productively with the department. But I do wonder if it would, at this point, the best approach would be for him to withdraw it on the understanding that there will be changes in the government plan and we can continue to work with him on those changes so that members can see both sides of the equation and they can be more comfortable that we are changing within the normal process. Now, I know so he'll have to seek the leave of the Assembly to withdraw it now that the debate is open, but I wonder if that actually would be the best way forward for this morning.
I have thank you very much, Minister. I have 4 listed to speak, and therefore be helpful, Deputy, if you were minded to do so, if you could indicate that now, and if you were minded.
Yes, sir. I think it's probably best if I do withdraw this proposition, because I know there's obviously details that we would ideally want to obviously explain to members on the floor, but at this moment in time we cannot. So I think it's probably best if maybe something's brought forward in the government plan at a later date.
So you seek the leave of the Assembly to withdraw?
Yes, leave.
Members agree?
So I think there can be debate on this.
So I'd like...
Well,
I'd like to speak on that, please, sir.
Yes, you can speak on it, but Deputy Tadier got in before you. Deputy Tadier.
Well, I'm probably going to say something similar to Deputy Ward, sir, so I don't know whether to defer to him in the ether that he is. He may well have had his light on before me, or to simply say, of course, no one's going to object to this being withdrawn, and that's the desire of the mover. But it does go to show that a moment ago we were saying that it's really important that backbenchers collaborate with government on bringing propositions forward. And we know that the mover, the deputy, collaborated with government and they said, yeah, okay, this is a goer. And the comments paper said, yes, we can support this, only to have to wait to the debate to be on the floor of the Assembly for a technicality to arise where government says we can't support this because it doesn't actually work. We're bringing forward the government plan shortly. So it does make you wonder what's the point in collaborating with government if they have absolutely no idea what they're doing, and why these kind of things can be lodged in the first place when actually they shouldn't have been lodged if there were technical reasons, and it binds the hand of the Assembly to make effective decisions in the government plan. I'll just put that out there, but of course I think on balance we should probably let the Deputy withdraw.
Deputy Ward.
Thank you, sir. I should start off by asking you whether the phrase dog's dinner is parliamentary. Having just said that, my dog's just looked up at me and I've made a promise I can't keep because it's not dinner time yet. Because if it is, then I can only describe this as a dog's dinner. We have a comments paper in front of us, and we've just been through a debate where we're always criticised for you haven't collaborated with the minister, which really means you haven't undergone government control on your proposition. Now, Deputy Andrews has undergone government control on his proposition, and the comments paper published says ministers welcome Deputy Andrews' proposition in combination with the forthcoming government plan. Ministers, there's asked members to support it. Recently, ministers, it also says Treasury ministers have worked with Deputy Andrews. And then an assistant Treasury minister stands up and says, I quote, it's an ill thought through and hasty proposition that should not be supported. This, sir, is an absolute mess. And it shows that government really can't get itself organised. I make a suggestion to government, please meet regularly and talk to each other as Reform does, because you may get yourself as organised as we are, because you're leading this island. And we come to this proposition with the backbenchers doing everything they've been told to do by government so they can exert their control, with other members who are backbenchers seem to be promoting the same thing. And this is what you get. You get an absolute mess. Now, sir, this is, if there has been a waste of the Assembly's time, it is this proposition. which is now being asked to be withdrawn on the floor of the Assembly by the Treasury Minister, who published a comments paper to say it's supported and it's a very, very good idea. So if this is the way that government is going to run its processes and run itself, then we are in real serious risk. And it does not bode well for the government plan if assistant ministers in that government plan won't even agree with what's in the own government's government plan. Woe betide that assistant minister may have been a member of Reform, because they probably wouldn't be an assistant minister anymore. But there seems to be one rule for one and one rule for the other. So, of course, this has got to be withdrawn because this is an absolute mess. Mess procedurally, a mess in terms of the organisation of government, a mess ministerially, and a mess for bringing this to this Assembly and the role of the backbencher. That's why, backbenchers, I urge you to bring your proposition regardless. Thank you, sir.
Deputy Kovac.
Thank you, sir. Oh, that's what I wanted to say before as well, just before I heard Deputy Gorst requesting if it's a possibility to withdraw the proposition. I think the confusion came before the other proposition was lodged on similar notes for the first-time buyers, and then with this new proposition, the Assembly as a whole, I think, got confused on what exactly is coming forward. And I'm not sure how exactly the discussions with the assistant ministers went and if was any confusion in their discussion there. So for this purpose, I do think that maybe at this point it's best to withdraw it and bring it as an amendment to the government plan, and then there to be clarified exactly what the discussion was about and the terms. Thank you.
Does any other member wish to speak on whether or not the Deputy should be given leave to withdraw the proposition, as opposed to generally what's going wrong? Very well. Do you wish to respond in any way, Deputy Andrews, or shall I merely put it to the vote? Those in favour of permitting...
Sir, can we have an appel, please?
The appel is called for. The appel is on whether or not Deputy Andrews is given leave at this stage to withdraw the proposition P63. I ask the greffier to open the voting and members to vote. If members have had the opportunity of casting their vote, then I ask the greffier to close the voting. And the vote is, the proposition has been passed. 41 votes pour, one vote contre, no abstentions.
One, please. The member voting contre, Deputy Lehegerin.
Well, the last item of public business is the reinstate the reuse centre at La Collette. It's lodged by Deputy Curtis, and the main responder is the Minister for Infrastructure. Deputy, there is an amendment lodged by the Minister. Do you accept the amendment?
Yes, sir.
So do members agree that the greffier can read the proposition as amended? Very well. Ask the greffier to read the proposition as amended.
The states are asked to decide whether they are of opinion to request the Minister for Infrastructure to take the necessary steps to reinstate the reuse centre at La Collette by April 2024 in the existing purpose-built building, to allow for the current tender process for operation of the service to be completed, and, if this is not successful, to look at the feasibility of the reuse centre being operated by Government of Jersey employees.
Deputy.
Thank you, sir. There is a purpose-built reuse centre at La Collette. This has not been used for several years. So why bring the proposition now? Well, recently a group of volunteers who have been running reuse stalls around town have called for the reuse centre to open. This group is called Jersey in Transition. They have knowledge and experience of running reuse stalls. People donate unwanted items, and other people take what they need at no cost. These stalls have been very popular. The volunteers from the group Jersey in Transition sent an email to all states members to suggest we reopen the reuse centre. This would serve two main purposes. One, reducing objects going into landfill and the incinerator. And 2, providing items at no charge during this cost of living crisis. I've been involved in some of these activities before my time as a States member, helping to relocate unwanted plant pots to reuse sheds around the island. Upon reading the email from Jersey and Transition, I thought, yes, that's a great idea. At the time, there was only one response to the group from the Council of Ministers, and this particular minister thought it was a great idea too. So after consulting with the group, I drafted the proposition. To get the reuse centre working again would satisfy a central part of this government's aims from the carbon neutral roadmap. We need to reduce our Scope 3 emissions. The best way to do this is to adopt the waste hierarchy, of which the principal aims are to reduce and reuse goods. Do we really want to be adding more stuff to Jersey's landfill and incinerator? But the amendment states that opening the reuse centre is likely to divert 2 to 3 employees from existing duties. That does not align with the original proposition. Nowhere in the original proposition have I suggested that the centre should be run by current employees. It is fully acknowledged that there would need to be 1 or 2 extra staff members. Any extra staff who may be needed in the operation of the centre would be green new jobs. They cannot be anything more suitable to be funded by the Climate Emergency Fund than a reuse centre. And then we have to consider the wider public. We know that many people are struggling with the cost of living. Charity shop prices can even be too expensive. This is why the reuse stalls have been so popular. Picture for a moment a young family being able to browse the objects in the centre and take away a few things they need, maybe a bedside table, some mugs, a few soft toys, the sort of items that are often turned away by the charity shops, which currently end up in the incinerator or landfill. The reuse building has in the past been used by a charity organisation for sorting goods to reuse that would otherwise have been dumped. But then COVID happened. But we also have to acknowledge that it's not feasible for business or charitable organisations to pay for staff or to even rely on volunteers to staff a centre from which they cannot resell the goods. The reuse centre is not designed for selling goods. There is not room for both display of goods and for all the admin that comes with payments. It seems like the most practical option for the reuse centre is for the government to grasp the nettle, to use a phrase from the past, and admit that it needs to be staffed by government employees alongside all the other activities at the recycling centre. It could be used as a simple base for people to leave objects which may be too good for dumping and for other people to have a quick browse and take what they want. However, I've accepted the amendment because the department has started a tendering process, and it's only right they should be able to complete that process. I'd like to thank the Minister and staff who have met with me so that we could discuss this matter. The amendment states that they will take the necessary steps to reinstate the reuse centre by April next year. And if the tendering process is not successful, they will look at the feasibility of the reuse centre being operated by Government of Jersey employees. If the tendering process does not work out, then I ask the Minister to move ahead without delay in getting the reuse centre up and running again. Thank you. I move the proposition.
Proposition seconded. Yes, sir. Does any member wish to speak on the proposition? Deputy Coles.
Thank you, sir. I'm glad to see this proposition come before the Assembly, and I'm glad that the deputies accept the Minister's amendment, so hopefully this will pass through this Assembly with very little fuss. I just wanted to say that it is very good to mention with the carbon neutral, I can't remember the name of the fund now, the Carbon Roadmap Fund. Climate Emergency Fund, thank you. That this is the kind of incentive that we should be hopefully using to use this fund for. as someone who often puts items up on Jersey e-cycle, it's great to see that people will come and take things that I no longer want, that I don't believe are worth selling, but otherwise would end up in the incinerator or being dumped and just being discarded and actually being given a new life by someone who actually needs it. But of course, as anybody who's tried to use this Facebook group, trying to coordinate with people who don't know where you live and finding a time that is convenient for everybody, it becomes very, very difficult. Sometimes you're having work done to your home and you need something to be cleared out by a particular time, and actually this reuse centre would be very, very good for people to be able to say, you know, I'm dropping this down to reuse centre today, there's your point to be able to go pick it up. So I do urge the Minister to ensure that with their tendering process that it doesn't become a bureaucratic nightmare for the people who are going to be operating the service. So actually there is no need to worry about funds and claiming money back for this thing. Obviously I don't want to handcuff them and say they can't charge rent, but I do hope whatever rent they charge will be affordable to ensure that the process of allowing people to recycle their products and reuse and other people to reuse products is as simple and as straightforward as possible. So I urge members to support this and hope that a good carbon neutral alternative is provided.
Minister for Infrastructure. Deputy Mayor.
The first thing I'd like to do is to thank Deputy Curtis for accepting our amendment to her proposition, and I'd like to assure her that I and other members of the infrastructure team fully committed to the principle of reuse. Before I talk about the reuse of household items, I should have informed the Assembly that several months ago, and before Deputy Curtis decided to lodge the proposition, the Ops and Transport section of INE were already talking to various parties, both commercial and charitable, with a view to reopening the facility at Le Collet. It's also important to mention that the intention was for the facility to be used in the same way as it was before, and when it was closed down to COVID. That's to say, it was used as a reception centre for household goods that could then be fed into properly developed retail outlets. As members will know, we have a number of prominent charities already involved in this type of process, sir, and they run well-organised operations and outlets and shops, and they're both popular and successful. So the fact that the whole business of recycling domestic goods is a complicated one. I'll give you an example, sir. For safety and insurance reasons, it's not possible to recycle a number of items, and they include things like battery-operated toys, damaged furniture or furniture without fire rating labels, children's equipment such as car seats and high chairs, electric blankets, fridges, TVs, and there's a whole range of items that for safety reasons can't be recycled. This means that a considerable amount of work needs to be done when goods are first received. In addition, once that process has been undertaken, the products have to be stored and displayed in such a way as they can be properly sold or passed on. This is particularly relevant to the building at Le Collet because the facility is relatively small and it certainly doesn't lend itself to being both a reception and retail premise. Deputy Curtis will have seen this for herself when she accepted our invitation to visit the facility last week. Whilst Deputy Curtis's desire to offer free goods to those most in need is very laudable, past experience from various operations indicates that this quickly becomes fertile ground for professional traders and car boot sale collectors who are provided with a ready source of extra profit, sir. I know this is not Deputy Curtis's intention, but it is part of the reality. Fortunately, a number of existing charities tend to recognise those most in need and very often provide goods free of charge in any event. As a consequence of all of these factors, I think members will agree that it makes a great deal more sense for this facility to be used as reception only. It's worked well in the past and it will work well again in the future. And the good news is that we're in discussion with several serious and very capable operators. Something else I should mention is that whilst the early estimate from the department was that the original proposition would require between 1 and 2 extra people on the INE payroll, further investigation suggests that in order to cover holidays, breaks, sickness and a variety of other complications, we would probably require 3 or 4 extra staff. Finally, sir, we've confirmed with Deputy Curtis that in the event that all of our current discussions fall through, we would seek to undertake the stated aim of the original proposition
But in the meantime, so I would urge members of the Assembly to support the amended version of this proposition. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much. Does any other member wish to speak? Deputy Tadier.
So I do wish to speak because I think the amendment is potentially, whilst it's a pragmatic way forward, and of course I'll be supporting the amended proposition, it is a different proposition in the other sense of the word to what is maybe being envisaged by Deputy Curtis. So I was grateful for Deputy Curtis setting out her vision of what she would like to see in an ideal world. I do very much think that the giving table model expanded on a much bigger scale is something that is still interesting and worth pursuing. So that the idea of reusing goods is very practical. So I remember the old system, actually. You take things down there. There was already, I think, a bit of triage that went on down at the La Collette facility anyway. My concern is that if it goes out to tender, there's immediately going to be a profit motive. So I get the Minister's concerns that you might want to avoid what some pejoratively call the vultures that come down to see what they can scavenge and then sell onto a car boot sale. But I think if there are people out there who think they're going to get rich by going to a depot, collecting people's unwanted goods and then selling them at a car boot sale, when the very people at car boot sales can also do the same thing and go down to the depot and get things for free, as well as the numerous sites there are on local Facebook, for example, where you can just pick up things for free anyway. I don't think there's that market for car boot sales anymore, and there certainly isn't the field at Millbrook that there used to be for those car boot sales to take place. So I think the world's very much changing in the lower echelons of capitalism when it comes to trying to make 50p or a pound. People are actually much more keen to just get rid of their junk. And that's what you tend to see at car boot sales rather than trying to make a quick profit. I think even the people who sell jam and tomato plants at car boots are not making any profit. They're probably just getting some of their costs back. So I don't want to go too far off piste on this. My concern is that actually what will happen is that we'll put this out to tender and that you'll actually get quite a savage triage happening. So actually people will be just dumping things which could easily be repaired because they can't be sold on. So I think Deputy Curtis's idea that actually government needs to bite the bullet, and actually the most sensible way forward is to pay staff to create a couple of new jobs, new green jobs down at La Collette, so that this system can be run. And then anything which has been there for a few days a week, which can't be repaired easily, can't be either given on or passed on to the likes of Acorn or sold, whatever the model might be, would then, of course, end up in the big skips. One thing I do have to ask the Minister, though, is that I think it's generally related, sir, is that the last time I went to La Collette, which was only a couple of weeks ago, they'd taken away a lot of the spaces for recycling. So things like paints, and of course those are things which potentially could end up at the reuse centre if you've got half a tin of paint which is still good but you don't want it knocking around your shed because you're not going to use it again. That's potentially something which could go to reuse. I noticed they've completely got rid of the paint, and then when I went to dump my paint they said no, just put it in with the burnables. I think that's really worrying if we're putting burnables, paint into burnables and it's ending up in the incinerator. I think that's something the Minister seriously needs to look at, and that could be something again which this is partly able to resolve, sir.
So any other member wish to speak on the proposition? No other member wishes to speak? Then I close the debate and call upon the Deputy to respond.
Thank you, sir, and thank you for the contributions. Deputy Coles mentioned this would be a good use of the Climate Emergency Fund, which, like I say, I can't think of a better use for it, and how it's convenient for people to drop off goods. And yes, I agree with Deputy Binet that some items cannot be reused. I'm sure it would be possible for the staff to advise as people come into the centre. I understand Deputy Binet's concerns about those people who resell products, but I think we have to focus on the main aims of preventing objects from going into landfill and the incinerator. And as Deputy Tadier stated, no one is going to get rich from doing that anyway. So I Would like to say we have a purpose-built reuse centre. I say let's use it. I urge members to vote for this proposition and I call for the appel.
Appel is called for. I invite members to return to their seats. The vote is on P65 as amended. I ask the greffier to open the voting. If members have had the opportunity of casting their votes, then I ask the greffier to close the voting. The proposition has been adopted, 44 votes pour, 1 vote contre, no abstentions.
Contre, please.
And the member voting contre, Deputy Miller.
Very well.
A ring binder, sir.
Well, perhaps so. Right. Then that ends public business, and I invite the Chair of PPC, please, I invite the Chair of PPC to propose the arrangements for public business for future meetings.
Thank you, sir. At the moment, we have 4 items listed on the order paper for the next sitting. 2 additions have been made since the consolidated order paper was printed. Reporting of headcount and vacancies from Deputy Andrews, and appointment of non-elected members on scrutiny panels from Deputy Scott. With only half a dozen propositions listed for next time, I do not anticipate a long meeting, but please keep continuation days free to attend if necessary. I propose the arrangement of business.
Members agree to accept the arrangement for future business as proposed by the Chair of PPC. You have your light on, Deputy Dubler.
Please, may I speak on a separate matter, sir?
On a separate matter? Yes. Well, we'll wait and see when we get to it. Very well. That's the arrangements for future business. Yes. Did you wish to say something within the...
Thank you, sir. With your leave, may I draw members' attention to a training session which is being offered next week and relates to a legal duty which will be coming into force following the approval of the Assembly relating to children's rights. When that law is approved by the Assembly from the 1st of January next year, we will all, so not just ministers, all members of the Assembly, whenever we lodge a proposition, we will be duty-bound by that law to lodge a children's rights impact assessment along with it. So this is a law that I am leading on behalf of the Minister for Children and Education, and I'm putting on a training session with my officers next Wednesday. And at the moment, the uptake has been quite low, but I just wanted to stress to members that this will be really helpful to you in ensuring that you are fully equipped to fulfil the requirements of that law when it does come into force.
Thank you very much, Deputy. Deputy Taddy, did you have anything that the Assembly needed to be dealing with now?
It relates to what the Deputy just said, but I think this is probably not the place for it. But I do have a query about the process about arranging these kind of briefings for the Assembly members, which I think should be led by the greffier, not by the government, if it's a duty of the Assembly.
Well, in which case, could I suggest that you raise that as a point outside the Assembly? The last thing for me to say is to remind members that at 5:45 there is the AGM of the CPA. At 5:45 this afternoon. We can't bring it forward, I'm afraid, because of the various arrangements that have to be made for presentations and things of that nature. So 5:45.
So I was just going. I wonder if I may just say a couple of words on that as chair of CPA. Just to encourage members, if they really can, to attend we've had a lot going on this year. There are some presentations, they won't be too long, and there are ex-members of the Assembly who are attending, and it's always good to meet. And I can only apologise again that I can't attend in person, but we will present, and the dinner is still going ahead. So just encourage members to attend if they possibly can. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Deputy. The Assembly therefore stands adjourned until the 3rd of October.